Welcome to Be More FCA Today with your hosts Stan White and John Sharon. This show is for gifted Baltimore middle schoolers, high schoolers, colleges, athletes in the Baltimore metropolitan area. You know, coaches and players. If it's important to you, Stan and John will talk it through. Do you know the Baltimore Fellowship of Christian Athletes? You gotta have faith. Be More, are you ready? Let's go, Stan. Let's go, John. FCA Today.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, it's your guy, it's your boy, Pastor John. Listen, in the building today, episode 6 of Be More FCA Today. So excited to be here one more time. Excited to bring another show to all of our supporters, those who have been rocking with us for 6 episodes, man. Time is flying. Time is going by so fast, but it's been a blast. I've been enjoying the time that we've been spending here together on Be More FCA Today. Hey, Ms. Lois, how you doing? So today we have another exciting show. It's Black History Month. And so today I thought, what better way to celebrate our history than to have an interview with someone who is a true hometown hero. And this is a part of Baltimore's history that I don't think we've celebrated enough. And this particular family that we're going to talk about today has been instrumental. And you know, Fellowship of Christian Athletes is this show is a sports show. But this family and this particular publication has been so instrumental in the struggle for Black athletes to get where they've been and the struggle for athletes along the way. So we just want to bring to the stage today none other than Pastor Draper from Freedom Temple AME Zion Church. Pastor Draper, how you doing, my sister? How is everything?
I'm doing well, Pastor John. Thank you for having me on your show today. I am excited about sharing with your viewers and with your listeners, about the Afro, especially about our coverage, as you said, of African American sports for so many years. Yes.
Listen, the Afro-American has been a staple in Baltimore City for as long as I can remember. Now, I don't know if a lot of y'all remember back in the day when we really took pride in our neighborhoods. I'm going to take y'all back. Some of y'all might be too young to remember this. There was a thing called the Afro Clean Block. And this publication used to really support. And I remember back in the day, my grandmother lived in the 1600 block of Wolf Street. And they had marble steps back in the day. And the people in the neighborhood used to every day, without fail, you had to get that bucket, you had to get that comet, you had to get that scrub brush, you had to get that rag, and you had to go out there and you had to scrub them marble steps every day. But Afro Clean Block used to support those types of efforts in keeping the neighborhood clean. And this publication was it was our paper. It was our publication. It talked about the things that were important to us as a people. It told the news that was important to African Americans. And so your family was instrumental in bringing that news to us as a people. And so I just really want to get into the history in a few minutes. But first of all, let's just talk about you for a couple of minutes, Pastor Draper. How long have you been pastoring?
I have been pastoring. It will be 19 years in September.
Wow.
This year.
To God be the glory. To God be the glory for the great and wonderful things he is doing. So your family has a legacy of impacting lives in a great way. So tell me how you got into the ministry.
Wow, how much time you have?
We got time.
Life for me, part of my ministry, getting into ministry, I wasn't born to ordained ministry, and I certainly, you're not born into becoming a pastor. But our family and our family business was started on Christian values. Mm-hmm. My great grandfather John Nice name too, right, Pastor John? My great
Hmm.
grandfather, my great grandfather John said that a newspaper succeeds because it believes first in God, then in itself, and then in the present generation. And my grandfather Carl wrote prayers for every single occasion. So we were reared, I guess, raised in as Christians,
Come
and
on.
so ministry is not always about what you call yourself. Ministry is about a calling.
Come on now.
However, as I matured and grew and did a whole lot of things and ran from the church and ran from the calling, God called me into ministry almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yep, almost 30 years ago, and started out not as a pastor, but more, as an evangelist, as a preacher, in fact, all over the world. And then, God, I just said, time for you to settle down, do. So I, I accepted the call of pastor in the AME Zion Church. You don't really assign yourself; the bishop
Yes, ma'am.
assigns you. Yep. So.
Yes, ma'am. Amen. Well, to God be the glory. And she mentioned some names. And so that's what we're going to really get into who John and Carl were. And I'm sure some of you have heard these names before, John and Carl Murphy. And these are giants in the community. And today, if you've never heard these names, today you're going to learn, as you know, you're going to learn today. You're going to learn today about who these awesome, powerful men were. These are giants in our community, giants in Baltimore City. And today we're going to learn about who these men were. So tell us about who these awesome men were that you were just mentioning to us.
Well, let me start with John Murphy. John Murphy was an enslaved man. He was a whitewasher by trade. Wallpaper took out the whitewashing businesses. He was a
Mm-hmm.
printer, and he was over 50 years old when he purchased the name Afro and press at an auction. The name was already in existence. And the way the family history goes, he borrowed $200 from his wife. She gave him $200, whichever one, doesn't really matter. And they started this publication when reportedly less than 2% of African Americans could read. He wanted to talk about what was really happening in our community. He wanted to report on what was happening primarily in the churches. He was a member of the Bethel AME Church, and his
Mm-hmm.
grandfather had been an organist there, and he was the superintendent, as they called, and they used to call them that today, of the Sunday School Helper, a
Mm-hmm.
publication of the H-Town district of the AME Church. And so he started this paper, and like I said, he was over 50 years old. He and his wife had 10 children,
Mm.
but he had 10 children, and he had been in business with a couple of preachers. And when it was just the three of them, the business didn't do as well. So the preachers decided they would stick to preaching, and he decided he was going to stick to printing. But still, it was a wonderful, like, marriage made in heaven, so to speak, if we're talking in those terms. And that's who John Murphy was. And so I said they had 10 children. They had 5 male children, 5 female children, one of whom was my grandfather, Carl. And so when John Murphy died in 1922, and my mother told me that he died of a broken heart because
Mm.
one of my uncles, my great uncles, Dan, had died at a young age, and he said to his surviving sons, "This is what I want you to do." So my grandfather Carl, who was a Howard grad and a Harvard grad, was the chair of the German department at Howard University. They would come over to Baltimore in the on the weekends to edit the paper, and so he would do that. And his dad said, "No, when I die, whenever that is, you're the one to take in charge." And he said to his other sons, "This is what you're going to do. And by the way, you're going to pay your 5 sisters the exact same salary that you guys get. So if you get
Wow.
$50 a week, they're going to get $50 a week. But we want to keep this enterprise going so that we can tell the news of our community, because we can tell it better than anybody else."
Amen. That's so powerful. And when you think about, I'm thinking about, Miss Martha Murphy. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
her earlier and how he had borrowed some money from her to keep it going and keep the legacy moving. But then we think about that. That was a progressive way of thinking in those times, that he said to them that you're going to pay the sisters the same amount of money, because you're talking about wage equality, something that was unheard of back then. But he was very progressive even then.
Yes.
That's a progressive way of thinking. Yeah, even then. for a publication and for a man of God to be thinking in that way.
Right,
Yes, ma'am.
especially at his age, when the life expectancy at that time was so much lower, so much lower.
Mm-hmm.
So he jumped into that business venture. When I look back at the history, and I just listened to a podcast yesterday. If any of your listeners get a chance, go to "Who Deserves a Monument" is the name of the podcast. Produced for city school students, and with the suggestion of the students to understand the City Springs School. And so, sorry about that. So, that episode 5 of that gives some history that I've not heard of before myself until I listened to that podcast. It's about 50 minutes, but it's fascinating to listen to. So sorry about the back.
No. We understand. And for those who who may be listening today and watching today, I was sharing with Dr. Draper, and she told me she's in the process of taking care of some COVID stuff. She's getting her vaccination, guys. So listen, I told her, listen, that's the real world right now. So we can't be bothered by that.
Right.
So if somebody reach in the window and, put it in the arm, we just going to keep it moving. You know what I mean?
Right,
We're not going to be
right.
bothered by that. That's the world we live in. We're living in a pandemic right now. So we're not going to be bothered by that at all. We need you to get that.
And we've been in this line for 3.5 hours. So
have mercy, child. Have mercy. Have mercy. I pray. Have mercy. So to think of, and definitely we want to make sure that let's mention that podcast again, because I want the young people who may listen. It's called "Who Deserves a Monument," right?
Who Deserves a Monument? And listen, when they called us to say the podcast was being done, and myself and one of my nieces, we're speaking on that. They said this was a suggestion of the students, not the teachers. They asked the students, who deserves a monument in Baltimore? Who would you like to know more about? As the Confederate monuments come down, who would you like to see that look like you on a monument? And the students came up with that name. So they called us and said, it's fascinating. My niece and I did a little part of it, but the historians that are weighing in about what Baltimore was like in 1915, when the newspaper and the churches worked together to organize folks to say that if a particular legislation didn't get passed, we're not working at your houses this week. If you're not supporting that legislation, we're not showing up. And people didn't show up. So, you have all of that going on. And then get to Carl Murphy in the 1950s, and you find out about how closely he worked with Thurgood Marshall. So even in 2021, we have a rich history. But in 2021, we may deliver it differently, right? Even though people can still get a print edition. Shameless plug. I hope people go to apple.com and sign up to be a member. But we have nearly 700 viewers on Facebook. I'm going to tag this broadcast later. And we want people to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, do all of those things. But most of all, more importantly, it's not about us. We need your news. We want to know what's happening in your community.
Come on now.
With the digital age, it doesn't take long. So you got something that's going on in your community, something that's going on with your young person, send it to editor@afro.com. We want to know about the students, especially our student athletes. Pastor John, we want to really push that out so that everybody can see what we already know, that our young people are brilliant. They're playing sports, but they are scholar athletes. And those who are not yet scholars, they're working on it because we're helping them to get there.
Amen. Thank you so much for that, because that's important. Because so much of the narrative about the way things are going on in our community gets twisted. And so to have a publication where we can tell the news the way that it's actually happening is very important. And to have a place where we can actually tell the truth about what's really going on in our neighborhoods in a way that reflects properly on what's going on in our neighborhoods. Because many times if you watch the news, the first 10 minutes of the news is about everything that's going wrong in Baltimore City. And to have a place where we can kind of, highlight because a lot of good going on in the city. Baltimore Fellowship of Christian Athletes is one of those things. So it's a lot of good stuff happening in the city of Baltimore. And if we could highlight those things, if we could bring light to those things, I think it would increase hope in our city. And your publication, the Afro-American newspaper, the Afro, could really help in that way. And so that wasn't a shameless plug. That's a plug that we need to have, we need to hear, we need to know about, because we need to get back to that.
Right. And
So
we're
go
passionate
ahead.
about that with our young. We're passionate.
Mhm.
We are proposing now a project where students in the ninth grade could take our archives. We've got 1 million pictures in archives, and we've got a whole bunch of stories around Baltimore and beyond, but where they could take that information, bring it up to 2021, and talk about it. And so we're working with the city schools now. How do you bring that to life? It's great that we have our history, but how do we bring it to life, and how do we put it into a format that our young people can relate to? Because I find that young people are really interested in African American history. People think
Absolutely.
they really are interested in knowing, well, where did we come from? Certainly, because think about the young people, Pastor John, I don't need to tell you this, preaching to the choir, who know nothing but yellow tape in Baltimore City. Their
Yes, ma'am.
whole lives, all they've heard is killing after killing, shooting after shooting. They don't know, some of them, many of them may know, that Thurgood Marshall was a Baltimorean.
Yep.
So we want to lift up those positive role models, past and present, to say to our young
Absolutely.
people, listen, there's a whole different narrative. Let's change the narrative about who you really are in the Lord and who He's created you to be.
I think, and it's so true. In doing my research for this interview, and I was sharing with you pre-show that the history of this publication is fascinating. And so, can you just tell me about like some of the, like, I know your father, your grandfather, and all those persons, but tell me about the legacy. Tell me about how strongly, how much it meant to your family, about how this publication stayed. Now, am I right to say that this is the oldest family-run publication in the United States?
Wow, Pastor John, you got it right. So we're the oldest continuously published family-owned newspaper in the entire country. And let me say this: there are a lot of us, right?
Mm,
Because the founder and his wife, my great grandparents, they had 10 children.
my.
So there there are a lot of us, many of whom are in Baltimore, right? Some are not, like my cousin Bishop Vashti McKenzie, the first woman consecrated bishop in the AME Church. She's down here in Texas. Some people may know Billy Murphy's name. He's there in Baltimore, and folk get us all mixed up, but that's okay. It doesn't matter because we can't hardly keep it straight ourselves. But it is it's both an honor and an awesome responsibility to carry on legacy for anything. And I say to people all the time, all of us have a legacy. Every, we were in the business of chronicling and recording people's history and legacies. And so some of ours is a little bit more maybe chronicle because that's the business that we were in. But I want to
Mhm.
encourage everybody. I mean, I'll talk about our legacy some, but I want to encourage everybody. Everybody has a legacy. And none of us has a legacy that says everybody in that line was doing everything to their fullest God-given potential. I don't care who
Sure.
you are.
That's
Nobody
right.
has that. And if your past is not something that you want to keep, it's part of your legacy. But you start a new narrative yourself. Start a new chapter,
Amen.
right? Do
Amen.
that, do that, do that yourself. So our legacy, as I said from the beginning, um, great grandfather said a newspaper succeeds because you believe in God, in yourself, in the present generation. So one legacy that we have as family is the power of prayer. That's um, that's the first legacy. And I
Amen.
know in our branch of the family, which was the Carl Murphy branch, and there were 16 of us. He had 16 grandchildren. We could not do anything. Let's just say, for example, New Year's Eve, when we were younger and we really wanted to hang out, Pastor John, we better go by grandfather Carl's house first and be on our knees. And by the time he finished praying, all we want to do is go back home.
That's right. That's indeed. That's the
So
power
then
of prayer.
it was
It'll
too
make
late.
you act right.
Right. So that legacy was passed down, right? The other legacy that was passed down in our family and so many families, we were blessed that education, as it is in most, not most, but I can't speak most families, I want to say, or the majority of families, education is important in our community. And so it was really important. And so we were passed down this legacy, not if you're going to go to college. My grandfather was chairman of the board of Morgan. And
Mm-hmm.
when we were young, speaking of legacy, he would parade us over there. I told you 16 of us. And he would say, "This is Morgan College. And I'm the chairman of this board. And I know you're not but 5 or 6 or 7, but you are going to Morgan College since you finished high school." He would tell us that like every week. So
Wow.
10 of us listened, and we went 10, and 10 of us went to what's now Morgan State University. So that
Mm-hmm.
legacy was passed down as well.
Amen.
And the other legacy that was passed down, maybe I should have put this one first, was that you know what, you're not privileged.
Mm.
You may have some things that some other people may, but it's hard work that's going to get. It's believing God, but it's hard work. So I think I said this earlier. Carl Murphy said, "If you could walk, you could write." Right. And so when I was 12 years old, he would say, "All right, you write." And we didn't have any computers. We barely had a typewriter. And if you messed up, you had to get that, it wasn't whiteout. I don't know what you had to do to it, but you had to, do something to get it right. But
Mm-hmm.
he paid us 50 cents an hour. He made us fill out an application for employment, even at 12 and 13, and said, "You're going to get educated and you're going to write." And then when I was about 15 or 16 and would work there in the summers for maybe 75 cents an hour, I didn't have a car, and I would cover things across the city. And he would say, "I want you to go over here and cover." He wouldn't say that, he was gone then, but my aunts would say, "I want you to cover whatever." And I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I don't have a car." They said, "Well, there's a bus. Get on the
Wow.
bus, take your little notebook and your pen,
Go
and
get it.
and go get it." So we were raised, speaking of legacy, to give back. That
Amen.
the community doesn't owe us anything. That God already blessed us when He allowed us to breathe, and so God doesn't owe us anything, but we
Amen.
have an obligation to serve, and so
That's
that's the
beautiful.
legacy. And so
Wow,
Clean
that's so
Block, that
rich.
place, yeah, Clean Block and Mrs. Santa and other things that grew out of that. And even today, we're saying, how can we serve?
Yeah. 1930, the clean block started, right? Back in 1930, it was.
Somewhere, yeah, yeah, I think it was around
Yeah.
that time. And we've done
Mm-hmm.
some variations of it even in the last couple of years
We got to
in
bring that back.
certain neighborhoods. We'd love to bring it back, in a 2021 version.
I'm gonna help you with that. I promise you.
All right, well,
You
good. I'm
gonna,
gonna take you up on that.
I promise you. We're gonna talk offline. I promise you. We're gonna bring that back.
Great,
Yeah.
I love
So
it.
let's talk about Sam Lacey, this
Yes.
writer, this sports writer, this powerful writer who was a sports writer for your publication, and you guys were very progressive because during those times, blacks weren't allowed to, like, there was still a lot of struggle with blacks getting into sports, blacks progressing in professional sports and things like that. And your publication was really instrumental in kind of bringing light to the struggle of athletes really trying to break through that glass ceiling that had been set. Let's talk about Sam Lacey,
Yeah.
and his legacy a little bit.
Sam Lacey was an amazing professional, an amazing person. Sam Lacey commuted to the Apple offices in Baltimore from his home in Washington every day, arriving at the office at around 5 a.m. every day, even when computers were everywhere. Sam Lacey hand wrote his column,
Wow.
put in his 7 or 8 hours, left around noon or 1 o'clock every day, and went to the golf course.
Wow.
Sam Lacey held people accountable. His passion was around the integration of baseball. He
Mm-hmm.
was really and so he would call folk out. I mean, Sam Lacey was writing when Jackie Robinson came into the league. Sam Lacey told himself, he said Jackie Robinson was not the most talented baseball player. He said he was the most suitable.
Mm.
He said his demeanor, he wasn't a threat to folk. He did have great athletic skill, but there were people who had more skill, but were a little more radical, a little less acceptable. So the folks picked Jackie Robinson. We went to the Olympics when Jesse Owens ran, right?
Wow.
So the Afro was there when Arthur Ashe won, when Wilma Rudolph won. And so we would go, and Sam Lacey died in, I think he was, don't hold me to this, I think he was like 98, 99 years old, but he was still driving himself from Baltimore to Washington.
That's
And
amazing.
he had an amazing work ethic and an amazing memory for statistics and who was the commissioner. And then he would call those commissioners to task and say, don't tell me you can't find a person, African American for your front office. He would just stay on them. I know they hated to see Sam Lacey. And I'll say this last Sam Lacey story. Sam Lacey said that when he would go to cover things, they would not, Maryland's a southern state, so they would not let him come into the press box. He had to sit on top of the press box. But one day, the other journalists inside the press box, they came out of the press box and sat up on top with him.
Wow.
And so I think management finally realized, this is Memorial Stadium, but Sam Lacey belongs in the box, not on top of the box. But he was on top of his game.
Come on now.
Amazing human being, an amazing journalist.
What rich legacy. I mean, and when we think about this, all of this right here in Baltimore City, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you today, because I don't think a lot of our young people really know how rich history is right here in our own backyard. And I mean, your family and the legacy that your family has created, and just how connected they have been to the movement and our people moving upward, and our people just kind of moving through civil rights and all those things. Like, this publication has really been so instrumental, and we just want to today just salute the Murphy family and all of these wonderful people, and we want to thank you, those of you who are continuing to hold up this banner, to hold up this standard, to keep this going, because we need to keep breathing life into this, because we can't let something like this go by the wayside. And so everything that we can do, young people, I hope you're listening, because we cannot let the Afro go. We have to do everything that we can to make sure that this rich part of our history here in Baltimore, and it's not just a local paper. I mean, this publication went all over. Am I right?
We still go, yep, and we still go all over through social media. So we are finding that a lot of our readership is in Nigeria and West Africa. We can tell from the analytics on Facebook. We break down our followers, and I already said there are over 600,000 of them. When we break those down, we can see where people are from. So yes, a lot from Maryland, but a whole lot of folks from West Africa are, looking at the stories. We cover things from all over the place, and we absolutely want to celebrate young people, as I said earlier, and their accomplishments.
Amen. So young people, listen, I want you to find a way to make sure you get plugged into these archives that they're making available to you. Find a way to make sure that you get connected. And listen, they want your input, your ideas about how we can continue to make this go and grow. So, Pastor Draper, we love you, and we are so appreciative. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. Thank God for you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you for having me, and your timing is perfect. I'm going to log off now. They just told us it's our turn. So
let's go.
So I know there are a lot of people. Yeah, to God. I know a lot of people are apprehensive about getting this vaccine, and we've heard so much misinformation. And this is not about sports, but it's about our lives. And I'm just hoping that more people will get vaccinated, so our young people can get back to playing the sports that they love. And those of us who like to watch, who don't play anymore. I was an athlete in high school. Those of us who don't play anymore can get back to watching. And I especially like to see young people play, because they have so much enthusiasm, and most of them are teachable. All right, Pastor John, take care.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Y'all get back to Baltimore safe now. Love y'all here. Take care.
All right. God bless you too. Bye-bye.
Amen. Bye-bye. Wow. Wow. Listen, I really hope that y'all caught. I mean, that's so. And we didn't even get to all of it, but I knew she was in line about to receive, her vaccine. But this family and that publication, and for those of you who are Morganites, the Murphy Fine Arts Center, make the connection. The Murphy Fine Arts Center is named after her family. The Murphy Fine Arts Center is named after her family. So, man, what a rich, rich tradition. Wonderful family who's been in the trenches for a really long time. The publication, the Afro. Listen, make sure you go and follow them on Facebook. Today, their Facebook numbers should go up. Their followership should go up because you're listening and you're going to go follow them today and be a part of what's going on. And young people, I hope you heard her. She says they have an archive of photos and things like that. Listen, tap into that. Make use of that. Sometimes I see there's a particular page on Facebook that has like old Baltimore pictures, but imagine tapping into like our history, going back in time to see how it was to be Black in Baltimore back in the days. And you guys are so talented. I mean, the engineer here, Miss Crystal Foster, we didn't have a intro video. And this, I just love this Elevation crew. They just so talented. And today, this morning, she said, well, I noticed that you didn't have an intro video. And this morning, she just pulled the intro video that you saw this morning. She did that this morning. So you young people are so talented. Like, you guys are gifted beyond measure. So tap into that information that's available at the Afro newspaper. And listen, go to Wikipedia and look up the history of this publication. And it's so rich, the story and how it came about and all of the women and the men that were involved and how it, through civil rights and all of the things that they were involved in, just a powerful, powerful publication. So salute to the Afro Black History Month. We wanted to highlight our hometown heroes that are here in the city of Baltimore on FCA, Be More FCA Today radio show. Wonderful, wonderful interview with a powerful woman of God, Pastor Tony Draper from Freedom Temple AME Zion Church. She right down there in South Baltimore, not far from Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill, shout out to Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill, stand up. Cherry Hill, stand up. Let's go. Where you at, Cherry Hill? All right, Cherry Hill, make some noise. Not too much, though. All right. Y'all can sit down now. Cherry Hill, sit down. I know how y'all go. Y'all go hard. So today, there's another hometown hero that I really wanted to bring some attention to. And his name, for a lot of you young people who may not know about this gentleman, but his name is Mac Lewis. And Mac Lewis had a gym, and it was a boxing gym down in East Baltimore, and it was above. It was a store called the American Food Market right there on Eager and Broadway. And Mac Lewis trained in that gym for over 50-something years down there. And young men from all over the city would come and train in that gym with Mr. Lewis, Mr. Mac Lewis. And he definitely is another hometown hero in this city because a lot of young men stayed out of trouble by going in that gym. A lot of young men's lives were turned around because they were connected to Mr. Mac Lewis. And he would bring those young men in the gym and allow them to train and allow them to work out and allow them to stay out of the streets and stay out of trouble. And Mac Lewis was a tremendous man of God, and he stayed in that gym and trained in that gym over there. They say for over 50 years, he would walk up those the stairs to the gym was actually right there on Eagle Street, on the Eagle Street side of the building. And there's a little door right there, and he would go up those 20 steps into that gym every day and be in that gym all day, just training young men and keeping them out of trouble. And the gym actually turned out 2 world champs. One world champ that came out of that gym, I think the first one was Vincent Petway. He was the first world champ to come out of that gym, I think back in 1994. And of course, some of you young people who are around my age remember Hasim Rahman, who became the heavyweight champ of the world. And he came out of Mac Lewis's gym when he defeated Lennox Lewis for the heavyweight championship of the world. He caught him slipping and caught him with one of them Baltimore two-step punches. You know what I mean? And dropped him. And he held on to his title for quite a while. And so shout out to Mac Lewis, another hometown hero. And we want to just certainly give kudos to him. Mac Lewis died back in 2010, but he was, I think, around 92 years old when he passed away. So, but we want to definitely give a shout out to Mr. Mac Lewis. And there's one more hometown hero that I personally would like to give a shout out to, and that is Coach Bob Wade. Coach Bob Wade was the coach at Dunbar High School, and Coach Wade was historic in the sense that, first of all, he was a tremendous football and basketball coach. He's actually the coach that I played football for at Dunbar High School. Shout out to the Poets. Dunbar, stand up. Let's go. Stand up, Dunbar. Let's go. All right, y'all can sit down now. Sit down. All right. But Coach Wade was a tremendous basketball coach. He coached many national championships at Dunbar High School. Tremendous man. Actually played in the NFL for a couple of teams. But tremendous coach, awesome mentor, father figure to a lot of us young guys coming along during that time. Had a brand of tough love that we all needed and helped a lot of us become the men that we are today. But the historic thing about Coach Wade was not just the national championships that he was able to coach team. He became the very first African-American to coach basketball in the ACC. He received a coaching job at the University of Maryland. So he was the very first African-American to coach in the ACC. And that happened, I think it was in 1986 or 1987 it was. Can you imagine that no African-American had ever coached basketball in the ACC all the way up into the 80s? Just think about, so we've come a long way, but we still got a ways to go. And so the NFL in itself is still trying to address some of its inequality issues as far as coaching and things like that are going on. So progress is being made, but there's still a lot of progress that needs to be made. But we thank God that progress is happening. So today on Baltimore FCA Today, we're just so grateful to be a part of celebrating Black History this month, celebrating our hometown heroes and those who are doing such great work in our city. We have some things that will be coming up with the FCA, so we want you guys to stay tuned. Listen, make sure you're tapping in. Make sure you're following us on our social media platforms. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Make sure you're tapping in. Make sure you're following us on Facebook. Make sure you stay plugged in. Just last week, we had Coach Carlos Brown, who did the 3D coaching class. I know a lot of you tuned into that. I hope a lot of you did, and I hope you were blessed by it. But there are other things coming up. We have our annual banquet. That's going to be coming up soon. And certainly we're looking for corporate sponsors to tap into us, plug in for that. And listen, for you corporate sponsors, man, we got some really, really nice things that we're going to be hooking you up with when you come in on them corporate sponsorship levels. So I can't give it away just yet, but just know some nice stuff coming your way. So just know you're not just going to be given. I mean, you're going to be given as unto the Lord. I want you to know that you can't outgive God. You can't beat God given. So when you decide to give, just know that you're giving, to bless God first and to bless his work, because we're about a good work with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. But in addition to that, we know a couple of people that know a couple of people that's going to hook y'all up with some really nice stuff. The gifts are really nice gifts. So just stay tuned for that. So without further ado, that's really what I have for us today. This show, to me, is special because I like to always make sure that we pay homage to those who paved the way. And it's so important for us to always remember that we stand on the shoulders of those who've come before us. And as long as we don't forget that there are others who have come before and who have paved the way for us to enjoy the things that we enjoy now. There are those who have suffered. There are those who have even paid the ultimate sacrifice for the things that we enjoy today, for the freedoms that we enjoy today, for some of the things that we even take for granted today. And so just remember that, there is a place always for us to be grateful for those who have come before us, grateful for those who are part of our past. And we need to always make sure that we remember, respect, and pay homage to those who have gone before us, who didn't even, they never saw us, but they had us in their hearts and in their minds as they stood and faced enemies. They faced terror, even death, so that we could have the things that we have and enjoy. So this struggle in America and as for our people, has been a tough one, but God has been faithful and God has been keeping us and God has been bringing us through. So again, we want to give a shout out to Pastor Draper. Thank her so much for coming on the show. And we want to give a huge shout out to Mac Lewis and all those and the men who are carrying on that legacy now, because the gym has now moved to a Rite Aid just down the street. On Bond and it's an old Rite Aid right there in Church Square. So it's some brothers who are carrying on his legacy now. So shout out to those brothers who are continuing his legacy. And we want to definitely give a huge shout out to Coach Bob Wade. Thank you, Coach, for all that you have done and all that you continue to do. Salute to you, sir. All right. With that, Be More FCA Today, episode 6 is a wrap. It's your boy, it's your friend, it's your brother, Pastor John. I'm out. Love y'all. Peace and blessings. Take care. Until we meet again 2 weeks from now, y'all take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and honor God in all you do. Peace.
Welcome to Be More FCA Today with your hosts Stan White and John Sharon. This show is for gifted Baltimore middle schoolers, high schoolers, colleges, athletes in the Baltimore metropolitan area. Coaches and players, if it's important to you, Stan and John will talk it through. Do you know the Baltimore Fellowship of Christian Athletes? You gotta have faith. Be More, are you ready? Let's go, Stan. Let's go, John. FCA Today.